Hello everyone and welcome back to the Brightworks and another match of Beyond All Reason. Today I'm bringing you a match that I just recently played, well as far as my perspective goes. I guess it's been a couple hours by the time this video goes live. Beyond All Reason. I was playing in the Hornet lobby. Hornet is one of the developers of Beyond All Reason, and he has a pretty cool pack that changes a little bit of the things up, but it also means that Legion was enabled. Hornet, pardon me, is one of the main developers for Legion, and so I figured I'd give it a shot. So I'm going to be playing today is the red team leader, all the way on the other side of the map, the blue team leader. Spawning as an Armada commander, goes by the name of A459. We'll just call you A for the rest of this so that we don't have to go through the whole mouthful, but 45 true skill up against 33. Definitely in for some troubles. Now, you might have noticed, I was pretty excited about this. You might have noticed that I am officially part of the Silver Chevron Club. Woo, hooray! Had myself a little celebration at the beginning of this match because it was pretty funny. I managed to apparently get up to the Silver Chevron count. I don't know exactly what the hourage is, but apparently I've hit that threshold, so I was pretty excited. But anyways, not the purpose of showing you this match. It just happened to be a really good one. I can tell you from firsthand experience, so I'm excited to show you exactly what goes down. Starting off here, as all Legion commanders should, with a triple metal extractor start, because you don't have to worry about e-stalling like other factions do, because your metal extractors produce a little bit of energy. Very convenient, means you can get the third metal extractor up a little bit sooner, means you can start pumping out a little bit more metal a little bit quicker. You'll fall off eventually as you get into that T1. It's a really weird curve for Legion commanders. In case you're unfamiliar, Legion also has access to these overcharged metal extractors. They cost quite a lot of metal, but they also cost 30 energy per second to run, so very expensive as well. It's really interesting. It's very strange. It's a whole different playstyle, and it's a whole lot of fun. Now, you can see me spamming out a whole bunch of goblins right here, sending out those T1 very light skirmish bots. They have those like twin little Gauss cannons on their arms right there, and their funny little Gundam suits, waddling their way across the battlefield, going to be making it towards the front line. Oh, and we're playing on Esker Valley. Pardon me, forgot to introduce the map. Esker Valley, not so new by this point, but still one of the newer maps that we have in the map pool currently. Going to be interesting to see exactly how this map changes. I mean, obviously I played in this match, right? So I know sort of the end result. I've semi-spoiled it for myself in a manner of speaking, but also the things that I get to learn while watching this game are definitely valuable, not only to myself, but hopefully to you guys as well. Tick's moving across the field from the northern side as the blue commander tries to send them on their way up here. Going to be moving towards the hot pink and the tan commander, as both of them move to intercept. We do have some goblins moving their way up here. Almost called them grunts. They're like grunts, just better in virtually every sense. They outrange grunts, actually. Don't do nearly as much DPS, but they do outrange grunts. Means that they can be quite effective anti-scout tools, I guess. Yeah, rovers, rascals, ticks, all that sort of thing. Gonna have trouble going up against the goblins, but then the grunts, as you can see right there, gonna be able to jump on top of them. So it's an interesting matchup. I'd say pretty well balanced. That comes up a lot during this game, so just, you know, take it with a grain of salt. When you're playing with the developer of a faction, it's definitely, there's room for criticism, but you have to keep it fairly reasonable and fairly pointed too. You know, saying something is bad doesn't necessarily help out. I'm sure we've all received unuseful criticisms in our lives. That's certainly something I'm not here to tell you about or coach you on. But if I can show a few more people how to play Legion, maybe that would be a useful data point. Beast Eater moving far forward, pretty aggressive right here with the expansion, but I don't mind it actually. Moving forward to try and lay down all these metal extractors. There are quite a few of them, 2.0s right here in the middle of the map. You can see 2.0s over here as well, of course mirrored, so same sort of thing on either side, but Admos doing a great job of being really aggressive, along with Aiden, both supporting each other and being aggressive across the field to try and deny as much of that metal to the enemy side as possible. WTF is proclaimed here as we see a constructor moving forward to claim the metal extractors. A little bit confusing, this one, where everybody plays. It's essentially a lane map, except some people spawn further in the back, some people spawn further front. It's a bit strange in that way, but as long as you have some competent players, you can actually play it fairly diversely. You can move a couple of players to the back, you can move some players into air, you can kind of spread out your tech either horizontally or upwards, downwards. It offers a lot of variety, is what I'm trying to say here. Resbot picking up a couple of these grunts off the front lines. Doesn't seem like much, but every grunt here and there definitely helps, and that snowball can lead to tremendous results. We have a vehicle start on the southern side right here for TNT Remmer, who's going to be playing as the green commander this time around, going up against Adenot as well as Carbon Wev, or maybe it's Carbon Weave, the Maroon Commander right here on the southern side. Now, the nice thing about Esker Creek, I will say, is that you essentially have the midline drawn for you. Yeah, you don't really have to worry all too much about designating the midline. It doesn't change all too much because effectively it's drawn by the river, splitting the map in two. Interesting point of note, the river in the middle of the map does not block ticks from crossing, so I thought it absolutely did, but apparently it does not, so sending those ticks across more than viable as a scout here. A little goblin run by, but those goblins do fall when they come under fire from virtually anything else. You can sort of think of them as like a upgraded tick or a tick with a better gun, but essentially nothing else. They still have very low HP. Grunts here, not spread out, suffering a little bit of AoE damage. Would like to see those fanned out a little bit here. All said and done though, at the very least they get a good scout off. Is it worth it though? I mean, we lost essentially the entire army right here to scout this. I'm not so sure. There goes a max, and that definitely softens up that trade a little bit here, and it looks like some wind turbines will go down as well. Okay, 3 wind turbines and a metal extractor, a couple of tanks too, and there's another metal extractor. Okay, I would say that probably justifies it. The second and third metal extractor going down right there. Gonna deny quite a lot of metal to the Seafoam Green Commander. Here's the Hot Pink Commander moving in for a little bit of a exploitation of that softened line right there. Very nice to see. We do have a minefield being used as well. Some light mines being set up right now. Love to see those. Oftentimes light mines and mines in general being underutilized, but there you go. You can see it incredibly efficiently dealing with a whole bunch of those bots right there. Okay, very, very nice. Breaking the line, so to speak. You can see me going for a scout. This is the lovely thing about goblins, is how tremendously expendable they are. They're very cheap, only costing 25 metal apiece. Yeah, 25 metal per goblin. Means they're very, very cheap, which means they're very expendable. You can use them in all sorts of ways. This is the Centaur, currently under some debate as far as how overpowered, underpowered it might be. We can be the judge of that this game, at the very least in a couple of minutes here, as these Centaurs start to blast away at whatever they can find. See me peeling one of those off and self-destructing it. Testing out a theory about self-destructing things prematurely, if they're too low of health. I think it's probably worth it, but the jury is still out on that one. Either way, Commander gets sniped right there by those Gauss cannon-toting dogs, effectively. They're miniature hounds with a little Gauss cannon, a little triple Gauss cannon mounted on top of them. A very strange unit, but very, very powerful because they do a big burst of damage, and they are relatively tanky. They're not the tankiest unit, but certainly sturdy enough to assault and break into backlines, hold up against any sort of issues that they run into. Laser fire, cannon fire, basically anything. And then, of course, fast enough to outrun anything else. Rocketeers on the southern side here, blasting apart a whole bunch of those the laser towers, not wind turbines. Hasn't gotten that desperate yet for our Green Commander, TNT Remmer. Rocketeers doing a great job, though. Rocketeers are the ideal counter to the Janus. Seems a bit strange, but they do outrange the Janus, and then as long as they kite properly, they can effectively destroy a Janus with supreme efficiency. Makes them very, very valuable. Patrolling Centaurs left, right, and center here. You can see the idea is to use these Centaurs to snipe commanders wherever possible. As you can see me flirting around with them. Oh, beautiful catch up here, by the way. No scope 3s or no scopes. The Pink Commander here is a Legion Commander. They have a little Gauss cannon on their, there you can see me LMAOing. They've got a little Gauss cannon on their arm that disperses crowds of units, and a big ball of ticks. It's perfect. And then, of course, they've got their napalm missile, which is excellent for shutting down very lightly armored things, or degrading the armor plating, this sturdy armor plating on things that otherwise stand in the fire for a little too long. Tim Adams reclaiming a whole bunch of that metal right there. The commander, as well as all the units that went down, trying to get it all eaten up. Lovely stuff. Aggravators and Rocketeers working in tandem right here. There are hounds already pumped out to the battlefield, though, so J-Dog definitely getting some value right now. This commander rushed into tech here, using this geothermal as well as all of these metal extractors here to go heavily into tech, and it does well reveal itself at this point in time, as those hounds are going to blast away at a whole bunch of this T1. Those Rocketeers are not going to stand up to the cut of those hounds' jib. That's a saying I haven't used in a long while. Feels good, though. Feels real good. Centaurs, yeah, continuing to harass. So the one drawback to the Centaur is, of course, that they have a very, very small attack range. You can see the range on these bad boys. That's the red line right there. Very small. Means that they cannot attack very far. Means they have to dive quite far in order to take down structures. That's counteracted in the Centaur's favor by the fact that they can usually, once they get on top of a structure or a unit or whatever it is, they can blast it down extremely quickly. So, ideal counter to the Centaur, just being out of range, but a crazy timing right here. I was really lucky to catch this timing where A459 was capitalizing on that advantage of pushing far forward by going for a T2 lab right here. And so I was able to sneak a couple of these Centaur into the backline. These ones are going to split off and go after the metal extractors over here. These Centaur are going to focus down the base over here. I spied that T2 lab come up, and I knew immediately that I had to jump on top of it. So this is a incredible opportunity that you should definitely pay attention for in your games. If you notice that the enemy wins any lane in particular, pretty confidently you can guess that they're going to try their very most to transition into a T2 after it. If you can get some units in their face right at the immediate transition right there, you can oftentimes end up catching their lab before they actually have any units. So there you go, a couple of Centaur breaking into the line before the T2 are out quite yet, and blasting apart that T2 lab, as well as some of the constructors and other stuff well, the units and whatnot. The lightning turret you saw go down pretty quickly right there as well. All for the low price of 150 metal per Centaur. Very, very efficient. Here we go, this one in the back line over here. These ones over here are not quite done either. Taking out the advanced metal extractor, making sure to shut down as much of this economy here for the blue commander as possible. The idea here was to try and blow this lab to smithereens, try and reduce it to rubble here. Not gonna happen. 62%, 50, pretty slow. Here come the resbots, digesting those poor, unfortunate Centaur. And at this point, they are doomed. One of them did manage to sneak into the backline here, actually blasting some stuff apart. Little bit of an APM issue on my behalf. This definitely should have been my cue to transition, and also a T2 constructor was dropped in my base. So I was slacking heavily on the APM issues here, trying to micro all this. It's that age-old trade-off of microing units across the field and then slacking on your macro. Definitely should have upgraded these metal extractors to T2 a long time ago. Should have been upgrading my energy infrastructure. There's a lot of better opportunities here. Bomber's going to be caught by an Eradicator I threw up early in the match. There we go. Shooting down a couple of them, but a few will sneak into the backline here. Very heavily injured. 4 of those bombers now going after the geothermal on this side. Love that. Definitely a premier target. But they are Stormbringers, and man, those Stormbringers, they definitely leave a lot to be desired. Yeah. T1 Legion aircraft, not particularly compelling either. T1 Legion aircraft are fairly weak. The trade-off being that T2 Legion aircraft are quite strong. But for the time being, whenever you do have those T1 Legion aircraft up in the air, it's an opportunity, certainly for the Purple Commander, to be a bit more aggressive with those early T1 aircraft. We already have T2 up in the air, by the way. My Booty's a Beauty has already got a T2 aircraft up and running, so at the very least, the defense is going to be well taken care of here right now for the blue team, and it means that they can at least feel comfortable that they're not going to be counterattacked right now, especially seeing T1 Legion as opposed to any sort of, T2 or T1 Cortex or Armada. Overcharged metal extractors, here they are. 30 energy per second, but they do produce 2 times the amount of metal. Means you can get a really strange mid-game going where you have tons and tons and tons of metal available. You can see me spamming out these advanced solar collectors right here. 100 energy apiece for those solar collectors, making them, as far as I can tell, the most satisfying of them all. And these light landmines, they're so efficient. Look at that. Taking out so many of those Centaur right there. You can see me microing these ones back. Not sure if there's a minefield. I didn't sniff any out, so continued the Centaur aggression over here. But the minefields definitely paid in handy, shutting down at least half of those Centaur before they actually managed to really efficiently trade into, really anything. Rocketeers going up against the Hounds, and we do have a substantial Hound ball at this point. Gonna be a grand total of 14 Hounds up on the front lines, blasting away at any of these Rocketeers that they can. Weber's on the front line here as well for the Yellow Commander Aedenot, who's going for some Gunslingers as well. I don't know if those Gunslingers are going to be what you want against Mass Hound. The Gunslingers do not outrange the Hound, and that means they are free to pick you off from a distance. Sheldon around on the front, being microed forward a little aggressively. There we go. Little counter run by over here on this side will offset some of that army, relieving a little bit of the pressure from the Yellow Commander, but still having to worry about all of these tanks over here. Now, this is a composition the Gunslinger is going to be phenomenal against, so I'd love to see that bad boy moving in that direction to try and clean all that up. Sprinters, though, do manage to find the geothermal as well as some of those metal extractors and blast those apart. Nice split off right there, by the way, making sure to keep 2 of those Sprinters alive and only sacrificing 1 of them to the geothermal explosion. And there we go. That's 300 energy down the drain right now for our blue commander. Going to be forced off back. So this is an opportunity to eco like a madman, and I'm slacking behind. You can see me banking tons and tons of metal. So this is where the aggression all over the place comes into a little bit of a kind of a backwards thinking, where I feel like I'm super far ahead right now, so I don't need to worry about eco scaling as much. And then you end up behind because the aggression wasn't nearly as powerful as you imagined it was. It's a slippery slope, and just goes to show that even the best of us are prone to falling down it. Here's a gunslinger, not that I'm claiming to be the best of us, just saying. Couple of hours under my belt, cough cough, silver chevrons. I know the game pretty well. Constructors here to reclaim a whole bunch of this. Yeah, this is a lot of shell shockers though. Not a particularly potent composition. Anything that moves slightly faster than a snail's pace will be able to outrange or outpace those shell shockers. See, even the commander doing a decent job over here. Yeah, okay. It not going for a little bit of a trade-off here. Decides to just self-sacrifice the commander, goes down in a thermonuclear explosion, opening this area up entirely and forcing TNT Reimer off of the fronts. Built that T2 lab, and those Mauser are quite powerful, but man, definitely starts to hurt. Now, we didn't lose the lab, so as long as production starts coming up, you know what, might be able to hold. Now, Sheldon moving in right here, making sure that that's not a possibility, going to cause a whole lot of problems right here for our green commander. Lightning turret has been turned off right now. Try and preserve it for its time when it's most needed, which might be now. Nope, guess we're not going to. Commander, oh, within an inch of its life, just barely managing to squeak out of there. 2% HP left on that commander. Ooh, even a straight bullet might kill it. Very, very close call right here. Oh, he managed to get within range. All right, not bad. Managed to actually trade out for about half of that army right there for the orange commander. Definitely better than probably expected right here. Here's the Centaur jumping on top of a big ball of hounds. Even able to keep up with the T2 means that they can trade out fairly efficiently. They're sort of like a... I almost want to compare them to a Fiend, at least as far as their roll goes, except they're more sturdy. So they don't have the consistent high DPS, but they do have a big burst. And then, of course, they have similar speeds, right? So they're very, very good for jumping on things like, for instance, these hounds. Anything that moves relatively quick, but also not necessarily an assault unit. Very, very powerful. Here you go. You can see my T2 transition miles behind what the T2 transition of the other players looks like. See, T2 has been well streaming out at this point for the Cyan Commander for a good long while most of the time my T1 has not held the line particularly well. Now, the only thing keeping me in this game at this point is the fact that all of these overcharged metal extractors have meant that my economy has effectively been double the economy of, for instance, a T1 enjoyer, a regular Armada or Cortex player. It's a weird sort of instance because it means that suddenly that economy flips on its head and you can T2 transition with a crazy amount of resources in your belt. Definitely a commander, even better at Legion, would be able to make that transition happen quicker. Here's the drones, by the way, firing away. Pretty funny little critter. They have no discernible hitbox, nothing like that. They'll be here until they're shot out of the skies eventually. But there they go, tickling down all these hounds over here. A pretty bizarre way to counter hounds. I think this is supposed to die automatically eventually. Maybe that was retroactively changed or updated at some point. I think at one point they died on their own. They had to sort of go back to their drone port and recharge. I guess not the case here. But there they go. Doing a decent enough job against those hounds. Not bad. Bombers incoming. Couple of napalm bombers. Big old push on this right-hand side. We do have a we do have a couple of those good old transports coming out here. The Gatling gun transports. Pretty funny. There we go, the Venator. What a cool unit. So the Venator is one big burst of damage. Sort of comparable, I guess, to the Centaur. What a great showcase for Legion this match was. Didn't even intend for it to be that way, just ended up being that way. The Venator is a shotgun burst airplane, so it fires a shotgun burst when it gets within striking range. Very, very potent, especially against big targets. Dragons come to mind as one of those targets that's extremely useful for. You can shut down the dragons really quickly. Sharpshooters on the front line. My teammate in the rear here handing out units. You can see a couple of Mauser coming out here. I think he hands these over in just a second if I'm remembering correctly. Mauser are pretty good. Going to be great for stabilizing these front lines. We do have a tick spam out now at this point as well. Forward lab going to be producing some of those ticks. Gauntlet up on the fronts here, making it very inconvenient to stand up here as well. Meaning that for the time being, the army will be forced offline. Those Gatling transports, though, man, they were good. Admos Commander actually jumped on right here by them. And yeah, there's not really a great solution. I mean, there's a couple of light anti-air turrets, but those are T2. There we go. Commander cloaks itself. That's some clever thinking right there from the Orange Commander. At the very least, going to try and save his own life. Couple of Archangels up on the front here to try and blast these down as well. Not terrible. Definitely not going to save the day as quickly as we probably would have hoped, though. Very, very easy for those transports to find value. One of the reasons why Cortex T2 Air is so powerful. Their defensive capabilities, their defensive fighters, very, very good as well, but their transport's quite good for clearing away units that are otherwise fairly resilient. You can see I'm going heavily into those fusion reactors, constrained by build power, so going into fusion reactors for the time being, eating up the advanced solar collectors, and going for fusion reactors instead. Actually fairly efficient, yeah, fairly similar efficiency. About 500 metal, yeah, for 100 energy. Fairly close. You can see we're about at a fusion reactor and a little bit less than a fusion reactor. So you don't gain as much from trading these advanced solar panels for fusion reactors like you do for Armada for Cortex. Still definitely worth it, though. Big old hound battle over here. Radar jammers in mass right now for the Cyan player, though, are cloaking a whole bunch of the radar signature for these Cyan hounds. Means that they're going to be much more effective at dodging the projectiles right now from the Cyan commander. Crazy breakaway over here on the southern side. Oh, those light landmines are still getting so much value, though. I love this play, though. Sneaking the anti-air underneath all of the aircraft over here. Softening up this entire lane. You can see it doesn't do much one by one, but eventually, over a game, these do manage to blast all this down. I just hate that we keep running into these landmines. Oh, no. So close to complete obliteration. The anti-air is great, though. And you can see, I mean, we're softening up this air wall quite a lot. Really nice play right there by the Orange Commander. Remembering to include that anti-air. I mean, essentially forced to include that anti-air after the Scourge flying fortresses flew forward. You can see my plan to transition here. Going into some of the Martyr, the Kamikaze drone. Self-destructs to deal explosive damage to target area. It's a pretty interesting one. A very efficient unit. 65 energy and 2,000... Sorry, 65 metal and 2,000 energy. For essentially a flying bomb. Really good for precision targets like, for instance, a gauntlet, which you may or may not see here in just a moment. It's funny how much of this I remember. It's a it's been a minute, but I still remember the plays as soon as I see them. It's strange. Anyway, a lot of these overshooting here, but enough of them do connect with that poor, unfortunate gauntlet to send it straight to oblivion. Meaning that my gauntlet troubles, at least for the time being, are going to be well dealt with. The nice thing about those as well is also that they do a bit of scouting when they die. So you can send them forward, and the first wave that collides does the scouting for the next wave. Very, very efficient system. I'm always happy about it. Interesting that we're sending T1 forward here. I would have imagined we would have just opted for going into T2 at this point, but I guess we're still fielding a ground army as well, so maybe that T2 transition a little too expensive to bother with at this point. But you can see a T3 transition has already been well underway here for the Purple Commander. Now, interestingly, going for just 3,000 energy production here, which is normally like a fusion reactor or so. Sorry, an advanced fusion reactor or so. But we're producing Marauder, which only take about 100 metal per second to produce these. You can see they're not coming out tremendously fast, but they are eventually balling up over here. And you can see we've got quite a lot of them building on the front lines over on the northern side. We've also got a big old sharpshooter ball built up right now for the Blue Commander. Going to be investing in those high damage, heavy hitting T2 Armada bots. Well, that was a beautiful connection. The Vanguard up here finding tremendous value, blowing apart tons and tons of those Sheldon, using this scout spam in order to align their barrel properly and disperse long-range, high-damage justice onto the pink player. I'm so stagnant. Looking back at this, I'm playing so stagnant. I definitely feel like I should be eating up a lot of these units and transitioning into T3 at this point. Yeah, going into more fusion reactors, or maybe even an APHIS at this point. I mean, that's definitely enough build power to probably justify it here, if I had to guess. Going to be looking at grand total of 28 construction turrets, probably right in the middle, and the APHIS would be build power efficient. Kicking myself in the rear by not making that transition. Rocketeer is going to be firing away here. These are just Dragon's Teeth. Okay, I was wondering if these were pop-up turrets lurking in the mire for an opportunity here. Light Mine's going to be a little bit less effective against these T2, but not really. I mean, look at that. How much damage is that? 30 or 40% damage to each of these units every time they step on one of those landmines. Still really, really efficient. Miles more efficient than any other expensive metal. I mean, you can see 5 metal out on the field to deal with that T2. Absurdly good. Here's my Martyr drop coming in to clear out the T2 lab. Just making sure that it's really difficult for that Seafoam commander to rebuild. At this point, that Martyr lab, or that Martyr drop was the key target there. Just making sure that we knock out as many players as possible. Ticks in the backline here. Doing a great job. Yeah, there we go. I'm gonna pop down a whole bunch of the advanced energy converters right here. Oh, well, we should. We're trying to avoid the repercussions of the explosion. But unfortunately, there's only so much you can do. Oh, okay. Apparently my Mauser decided to step forward there. Not sure entirely why. There you go. You can see sitting on all of this, but the Marauder have marched forward, disintegrated the front line here, and we'll watch as they ravage the base of my northern commander comrade, Swamp Strider here. With effectively no solution to this, those T3 hit us, they blindsided us on this northern side. Should have expected it after we saw the Vanguard, but it certainly slipped by my watchful eye. Fusion reactor goes up in smoke, and those Marauder devastate the base right here of the Tan Commander. And I think No Scopes put it best. Learning Legion T2 against blue and purple is spooky. Definitely true. There go the Marauder into the light pink base as well. Gonna take down everybody on the northern side here and continuing to ravage even into the base right now. The brown commander, who is pumping out the right unit. We're getting some starlights here to try and blast these apart as quickly as possible. You can see I'm spamming out some Strider here as well. But this is where the real trouble begins. Because they've wiped out the entire front line, these sharpshooter are free to move forward. There's not nearly enough spam to deal with all that. And that means that this is a terrible, terrible situation. Let me switch to my view, actually, so I can explain the rationale going through my head. You can see the fighters moving over these, but we don't actually have any radar in this area, so detecting those blips consistently is not possible. It means that those are effectively perfectly cloaked when they're over here. So easy to forget about radar once it's gone. You kind of intuitively imagine that it's going to exist forever. It certainly does not. Now I get a notification about my commander being in trouble as I flick back over here to watch it explode. The first moment that I realize something might be amiss. Suddenly the sharpshooter spam in my backline hurts quite a lot. Some reason I'm going for pinpointers at this point. Definitely not a good usage of metal right there. And immediately, trouble has begun. Sharpshooter now blasting apart my base over on the northern side. You can see the rocket spiders pushing across this area as well. Going to be trying to find whatever value that they can. Very good against the hounds, mind you. Going to be really effective at cleaning a lot of those up. Boom goes my base though. One fusion reactor, metal extractor, and anything else at a time. Those sharpshooter ravaging everything else over here. Sending in the drones. Dropping on top of the sharpshooters. Little bit of an overshoot, but cleared out the majority of them here. Only 4 sharpshooter remain. Definitely manageable. But not comfortable. Not comfortable, I would say. Down goes the majority of the base. Strider eventually handed back. I handed them over, and then I asked for them back by saying regret. Maybe a bit passive-aggressive, but it is what it is. Equal damage. Well, not quite equal damage, I would say. You can see the economy's roughly equivalent right now, except more energy production here for the blue team. Our reclaim is a little bit stronger, but other than that, the economies have essentially been equalized. Losing the fusion reactors definitely hurts, though. Not having a fusion reactor means that there's very little energy available. At this point, I probably should have been asking for some of these wind turbines just to get scaling back up and running quickly. But you can see the blue commander with an incredible control over the entire map over here. We've even got T2 constructors moving forward to build all the T2 mexes. Always a good idea if you ever find yourself in this position with the opportunity to move forward. Oh, self-D issued over here on this Vanguard. That's a cheeky little move. Oh, we're gonna cancel it, okay. Trying to keep it alive right now. Keep it alive as best we can. The Cerberus cannon on top of the Tyrannus firing away at this Vanguard right now. And there it goes. It's a hierarching shot, firing high into the air, and eventually colliding down onto the ground. The Tyrannus, what a interesting unit, huh? It's got some Gauss cannons on its side, it's got a Cerberus cannon mounted on its head, and of course it's got a little bit of anti-air, because every flying fortress needs a little bit of anti-air. Makes them reasonably strong. They're an interesting choice. I believe they're sturdier than dragons even, which is definitely saying something. The dragon, famously sturdy. Makes for an interesting unit, especially if you're clearing away things like this, where there's T1 light anti-air, but it really doesn't do anything to this. Yeah, essentially nothing to this flying fortress. 21,000 HP. I almost wish there was a dragon out right now so we can compare it. Don't think there is. Don't think we have a Cortex T2 lab up and running either, so I'm not sure if we're going to be able to compare. But either way, not the end of the world. You can take my word for it. It's an extremely powerful unit. Fusion reactor back up and running. Resbots running around trying to reclaim as many scraps of humanity as possible. Doing what they can, doing their part. Titan out and available right now for the blue commanders. Southern side looking solid. We have the Mammoth to push forward right now. We have the Sheldon continuing to blast away as well. More and more sharpshooters moving into position now on the southern side for the Lavender commander. Easy to underestimate the sharpshooters when there only are a few of them, but they can definitely do a lot of work, especially against the units that they're meant to counter, like for instance the Mammoth. Effectively the perfect counter for this poor unfortunate soul. Dressed in orange and four-legged as all hell. Going to be suffering the withering firepower of those sharpshooters one click at a time. D-gun even goes down from the green commander who has now achieved his final form. Almost want to screenshot that. That's kind of beautiful. Look at those twin railguns mounted on top of that commander. Beautiful, lovely stuff. I wish he'd turn and face me right here. Either way, sharpshooters clicking away in the background. You can hear them. There they are. Quite a few of them now, actually, for the green commander. Blasting away in unison. And you know I gotta take a second to acknowledge my favorite unit on the field, the good old-fashioned welder. The impervious Mauer. The Mauer that is keeping the green sharpshooter safe. Did I say that right? All my German-speaking audience, let me know if I said that right. Apparently German for the wall. It's a nickname for a StarCraft pro. Forget which one, though. Their names kind of blend together at this point. Welder Sharpshooter, one of my favorite compositions because it's so resilient to so many different types of compositions. It's effective against spam because the welders will clear it out. It's effective against big T3 units because, of course, the sharpshooter. It's effective against other welder and sharpshooter compositions because the sharpshooters in the back will annihilate the welders. And it effectively comes down to a numbers game at that point. Effective against really all things across the board. Really the only hard counter to this composition would be a serious air investment. A couple of bombers, a couple of phoenixes, anything like that. Probably one of the few things that can really efficiently take these down. And as long as your air player is half decent or at the very least paying attention, it should be pretty easy to keep your sharpshooters covered. You can always do this as well. Whenever your welders deplete, just go ahead and back those sharpshooters off until you have a good enough sharpshooter wall. A welder wall, pardon me. Yeah, you can see me rebuilding, specking into some T2 aircraft at this point. Northern side, about to meet the wrath of the Titan. Slowly waddling his way across the map. But we're lacking so many of these metal extractors. This is a really, really unfortunate moment because missing these metal extractors seems like a not tremendous investment early on. But the longer those go down, the more metal we're missing per second here. You can see the blue team with an advantage of about 100 or so. Depends on reclaim a little bit. The Webbers here are reclaim, keeping us in this game. Single-handedly, Aiden is keeping us in this game with the T2 reclaim spider right here from the Armada game, or the Armada lab, pardon me. Going to be eating up so much of that juicy, juicy metal, feeding it back to the war machine, trying to keep us online. You can see my greedy plans. Trying to go for fusion reactors after energy converters after fusion reactors. One after another. Very greedy play here. Essentially, the gambit was that I'd greed as hard as possible so that hopefully I could get back to producing T3 units. You can see Xeno Zapper moving the commander up north here to try and intercept the Titan that is wandering this direction. Getting ready for it. See a T3 Gantry is planned right there as well. Always tricky as soon as that T3 Gantry hits the field. You know that the T3 units not really going to care about these T2 walls all too much, save for the Marauder, I suppose. Which I actually think is a fairly good investment, keeping those Marauder out, using those T2 walls. Shiva launching their missiles. Vanguard's also firing away. That's pretty nice. Vanguard, one of the few units that I think can outrange the sharpshooter. The catapult, also an excellent solution, as long as it doesn't die. As long as we're targeting the right things with the catapult, definitely a good option here. Do we have no radar vision? Surprisingly, oh, we do not have radar vision. That explains it. It's no radar right here because of the Juno missiles that have been constantly barraging the yellow commander. It means that we're having a really, really hard time targeting the high-value units. The sharpshooters, essentially. Yeah, catapult firing away at chaff and spam. Not firing right now at the sharpshooters is a huge blunder. There we go. We'll connect with maybe some of them. A few of them. Definitely not enough of them. There are the welders moving forward. T3 will melt. Ah, yeah, catapult. Not finding the value that it could. I think if it was centered on all these sharpshooter right here, probably could be able to take them down. Shutting down that play by quite a lot. Sorry, I missed a huge push over here. Titan got D-gunned by the brown commander. I remember it. I remember the play. Razorback will snipe the commander, though, and it opens the door right now for a whole bunch of Marauder to run into the base, sealing the deal for the brown commander. Xeno Zapper has a ton of Marauder move into the backline right now. Sprinters and Pawns will take down the advanced fusions. Wind turbines likely to chain react right here as the Razorback deals a deadly blow to all of them, and the Marauder continue on towards the Pink Commander's main base. Went for a nuke. I think that was actually my suggestion right here, and you can see the anti-nuclear coverage is actually quite thin right now for the blue team. We have no anti-nuke for the blue or the purple commander, either one of them liable to be nuked. So it's such a shame that it was so close to charging, but will go down to those Marauders. A critical snipe right here. I have a feeling if that nuke had gone across the map, it could absolutely turn the tides of this battle, but right now, one loss at a time. This is not looking good for our team. No, I have got the Bastion up and running. Not to be underestimated, the Bastion is a brutal war machine. You can see it there, blasting away at these Razorbacks, shaving off tons of their health per blast. An extremely efficient measure for tearing down these T3. A couple of pawns sneak into the back, though, and take out the E-converters. Definitely not comfortable. Losing those E-converters means no more metal production. Fusion reactors pop as well. Whoever said fusion reactors weren't as explosive as APHIS is, well, they were right. But when you build them right next to your E-converters like a dummy, yeah, you end up with a fairly explosive recombination, regardless. Sharpshooters up on the high ground here. You can see my Bastion trying to fire away at them. What's the range of the Bastion, actually? I'm curious. Range of 1,100 versus the Sharpshooter's range of 900. Ah, interesting. So the Bastion does actually outrange the Sharpshooters. Good to know for future use case. Grenadier here trying to take down whatever it can. A couple of bots and whatnot, sure. Firing its little grenades and blasted to smithereens. Beautiful. Lovely stuff. Marauders sweeping through over on this side as well, taking down the pulsars whenever they can. Tons and tons of pulsar defense over here. My goodness. Crazy huge investment in static defense right now. Coming in handy for the time being, because at the very least, it's pretty good for blasting apart Razorbacks. Bastion versus Razorback with a little missile landing on top right here from the Ambassador will eventually clean all that up. A little bit of tower micro to try and clean up all the spam here as well that the target, because it's not the smartest light bulb in the pickle jar, it doesn't actually know how to target this stuff down, so got to be a little bit careful about that. A couple of ticks might shut down your extremely expensive units. Can be a pain. Pulsar's definitely finding value here. Yeah, 32 kills between all of them, and I have a feeling they're probably not done. There we go, carving apart that composition right there. Sharpshooters will be caught in the blast as well. And another huge breakthrough. Demon trying to squeak by. It will be shut down here eventually, I do believe. Yeah, Sharpshooter reinforcements coming into the lab will blast it apart. Demon's not very thick in the armor plating department. Means they're quite susceptible to a lot of those high damage units, high alpha damage units like the Tachyon, Lances, the Starlight, the Pulsar, and then of course the Sharpshooters. Bastion barely alive, 0% HP, eventually will fall down. Quick Shot's doing a great job of cleaning up a lot of this. They do a huge amount of damage, but at this point, my lab is torn asunder. Not but the T1 lab's remains as a symbol of red wealth. Couple of spy bots in the backline here. Maybe looking for anti-nukes. Oh, not spy bots, pardon me. Spy tanks in the backline here. Maybe looking for anti-nukes. Not gonna find a thing. You can see I've taken over my yellow comrade here who's decided to tap out of the game. Figured it would be worth having a little bit of fun here, so I'm gonna go ahead and take over. Hands on the controls for the yellow commander, who went for quite a few wind turbines, by the way. Quite a lot of valuable eco space right there. Maybe would have been a good idea to discontrol those or deconstruct those at some point. Discontrol, what does that mean? Oh, very close right there. Almost managing to pop the E-converters right there for the purple commander. Such a bummer that we didn't get a nuke up in time. One nuke and I think this could have ended in a completely different fashion. But we're absolutely on the back foot here. Now you can see my last-ditch effort here, trying to utilize the Webbers to reclaim all this T3 off the battlefield, and then utilize a whole bunch of Marauder right now. Trying to pump out as many of them as possible, and I need more build power for it, so you can see me going for that right now. Trying to make Marauders per second happen. Always tricky. We have another demon clashing with the lines over here. Sharpshooter's not having it. Down goes the demon in question, face first into the dirt. That Legion commander, what an epic sight to behold. I love it. Resembles very closely the scavenger boss. I think it might even be the same unit asset. Very neat. Has a big old Gatling cannon on its arm as well, which is always fun. Very nice for blasting away at little chaff, medium tanks, assault units, all that sort of thing. Pulsars here continuing to fire away. Doing their duty, even though they're constantly being swarmed by lighter chaff right now. Eventually taking down one of the Razorbacks, maybe a second one here. Yeah, okay, yeah, not bad. A second Razorback has fallen. Will we get a third? Second Pulsar falls. And we will take down a third Razorback. Lovely stuff. Razorbacks versus Pulsars. Bit of a funky matchup. Metal per metal, the Razorback is, or pardon me, the Pulsar is very, very efficient. Certainly not ideal though. And here's a big APM wastage. You can see my poor, unfortunate Marauders have been balling up over here, completely unmicroed. And this store will have a field day, blasting apart tons of them. What a shame to see. Can you tell I was a little preoccupied trying to micro everything else? It's worth acknowledging these moments. It really is. As embarrassing as it is to watch myself struggle to control my own units, it is important to acknowledge this because everybody goes through this all the time. Except for maybe the, you know, top 1% of the 1%. Those freaks that can control 100 grunt armies. Multiple hundreds of grunts at the same time. Not seem to suffer in the slightest for it. Big Tyrannus push forward here. You can see those T1 anti-air, or T1 planes, pardon me, do exactly nothing against these. Virtually tapping on the outside armor plating. Asking if it'd be alright for these units to die. See a cheeky little play here in a second where I select all these construction turrets and then fail to select the Tyrannus 2 or 3 times. But at the end of the day, the Phoenix come in to blow apart the advanced fusion reactor right there. Love the Phoenix so much. They're such a cool unit. Capable of so much destruction. Here they go. Gonna target down. Oh, gonna retarget right there. Come on, I want to see one more explosion. Nope, not gonna happen. And at the end of the day, with overwhelming aggression on the northern side, a beautiful run by of Marauders up on the northern side, a great follow-up with Razorbacks, and eventually just overwhelmingly good counters to our play, i.e. the sharpshooter Sheldon spam. Eventually the red team does take the cake in this game of beyond all reason. Beautifully played by all people. Definitely if you see one of these Hornet lobbies up and running, give it a try because it is some good fun. And I will see you in the very next game of Beyond All Reason. Peace out, everybody.